set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping
The Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, August 4th edition, and fall camp is rolling. We're about 1 week in here. We got plenty of updates to talk about in regards to that. We had a great Rich Rod press conference I got some notes from today, and then also we got to hear from quarterback Nicco Marchiol and linebacker Chase Wilson, some notes from their press conference as well we'll get into, but perhaps even more interesting, we got roster news to talk about, both guys that aren't with the team currently that we knew about, plus another one that has been, of course, since removed from the roster we will cover. And then do we have more roster additions on the way this late in the game, even with fall camp rolling? I think it's definitely possible. On3's reporting of one. We'll talk about him. And then, of course, when Rich Rod spoke, then we'll be talking about another one here in the near future as well, as he dropped a little hint on that. So that's kind of the topics we're going to hit throughout this show. Roster update, talk about the 4 players that are ineligible and their actions today to try and get an injunction from the NCAA to finally become eligible, or at least get some answers in their situation. So that's what's on the docket for this stream. That's what we're going to cover: roster updates, press conferences, some fall camp updates, and then, of course, talk a little bit about the West Virginia players that are suing the NCAA. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one, whether you're watching live or on a playback. Either way, if you're watching here on YouTube, you can help us out just by taking a second, hitting that thumbs up button, helping us out with that crazy YouTube algorithm, help us find more Mountaineer football fans like yourself. And if you're one of those that hasn't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button, where you'll not only, of course, get the live streams, then you can get access to our pre-recorded videos, our podcast episodes. We just put out this past week our WVU football season predictions for the upcoming season, kicked off our 8th season of the podcast. So you can check that out as well. And that goes for you guys that watch live on Facebook or Twitch. Also, we appreciate you guys tuning in there, but be sure to come over to the YouTube channel, subscribe here so you can get that extra content. Can never have enough WVU football content, in my opinion, right? So appreciate you guys tuning into this one. So with that being said, no further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with the roster news, because multiple things to cover on that front. First of all, you guys may have heard about this one already, but Aiden Bussell, who was, an offensive line transfer from Tennessee. We talked about all the offensive line transfers West Virginia added from the SEC. Aiden Bussell was one of those we had high hopes for, especially because he's younger. I believe he's only a redshirt sophomore, if I'm not mistaken, had multiple years remaining. I do know that. But unfortunately, stepping away from the football program to focus on his health. It is a health issue it appears he's dealing with, although not quite exactly sure what it is. But On3, the West Virginia rival site here, WVSports.com was the first I saw report this. So that's where this is coming from, as they talked about Aiden Bussell stepping away to prioritize his health and his well-being, currently managing a serious but private health matter that requires his full attention. And he has since been removed from the university's official roster as well. We'll pull up our CRW roster tracker and take him off momentarily. But this is the statement here from Kevin White, who is Bussell's agent, CEO of Prosper Sports. At this time, Aiden's health and long-term well-being are our top priority. He has the full support of his family, our agency, and the people who care about him most. He added, Aiden is thankful for the understanding and support he's received during this difficult time. Of course, no further details provided. The WVU football program, as family representative, asked that the public and media honor that request for privacy, which is why, I didn't dig deeper and, don't really need to dig deeper. All that we know is he's dealing with a health issue. We need to wish him well, and he won't be with West Virginia currently. We'll see what happens if he's able to overcome whatever health issue he's dealing with and get back into football. But for now, he won't be a part of the Mountaineers this upcoming season, and we can pull up our CRW roster tracker as we wish Aiden Bussell well. But we will remove his name from the offensive line here. The redshirt sophomore makes that a little bit lighter there, which is unfortunate because if you guys saw the offensive line position preview series that I did, the video in the position preview series on the offensive line, I guess I should say, he was one that, I had in that 11 or 12 guys that I thought would contribute this season. So now you're down to 10 or 11 instead, potentially, which we will continue that position preview series in the near future, flip over and take hold with the defense. I wanted to let our season prediction roundtable episode have some time to breathe before we dove into that, but you will be getting the position previews for the defensive side of the ball coming out this week, so stay tuned for that. Another reason to be subscribed here to the channel, get those pre-recorded videos. So if you're only watching the live streams here on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitch, pre-recorded, you got season prediction show you can watch. You got a whole position preview series of the entire offense with the defense to come as well. Those are only available here on the YouTube channel as pre-recorded videos. So there's the roster loss for West Virginia, but what about roster additions? Yes, we're talking roster additions this late in the game. It's crazy. It's the day and age that we're in though, right? We're a week into fall camp now, essentially. I think we're at 5 or 6 days, so right out a week. This was the last day in shells today. They'll be in full pads from here on out. And West Virginia looking like they may add to the roster, not only at one spot, but maybe at two. The one that it looks like more of a potential sure thing is a potential another pass rusher, which let's talk about him because it was Pete Nakos of On3 that put this out on social media. He logged a prediction for West Virginia to land a transfer linebacker / edge out of the portal, expected to be a contributor in 2025. First of all, my first thing that popped in my head is interesting timing. Is this insurance in case, the eligibility thing for Jamori Robinson doesn't go through? Do we need another pass rusher for insurance purposes? Maybe. I think we already have, a lot of good pass rushers, but, you can never have too many. So I think that this is, a good move in that aspect. West Virginia trying to add another pass rusher late in the game, another late transfer addition, and may not be the only one, which we'll talk about that lawsuit momentarily, and we'll talk about what other position West Virginia might add. But unfortunately, this is, to read the article, you have to be a member of On3, Rivals, whichever, they have merged. I'm not, but I reached out to somebody that was to try and see, who this was. And so the name shared in the article by Pete Nakos of On3 Rivals that could be joining the West Virginia roster as a pass rusher in the near future is this young man. I'm not 100% sure on this pronunciation, probably going to butcher it. Oluwase Omotosho would be how I would go with it. Linebacker from Oregon State. I think he was at somewhere else prior to Oregon State as well. But you can see dealing with some injuries over the past few years, 23 and 24. So last year, only had 1 sack at each of the past couple of seasons because he was dealing with that injury. But you can see the year prior to those when he was healthy in 2022, we're talking about 6.5 sacks. And I believe he had several TFLs that year as well, not listed here on the ESPN stats. I'll make sure it's not showing up here. Wyoming, that's where he was in 2022 when he had that great. I knew it was somewhere prior to Oregon State. So had the great season at Wyoming, transferred up to Oregon State, and then, of course, dealt with injury, never really got to come into his own there, but does have capability as a pass rusher. It looks like he's someone that would be, on an extra year of eligibility again. So would he need a waiver as well? I'm not sure. I would assume that he's probably eligible if we're going to bring him in this late. I would think that it would be someone that's already eligible for sure, but this is the potential transfer that it looks like West Virginia could land, according to Pete Nakos of On3. If, someone of that high profile is logging a prediction, I'd say there's a good chance that in the near future, we'll be doing a transfer update talking about maybe the addition of Omotosho to the West Virginia roster, adding another pass rusher. So keep an eye out on him. That is the name that is being floated around right now. As far as one potential addition, there is maybe another one that Rich Rod hinted at today that they maybe will add in the near future, which I'll talk about that momentarily when I get to cover in the press conferences. But before I do that, let's talk about this ongoing issue with the 4 West Virginia transfers that are seeking eligibility. I had to take a swig of the coffee there, guys. Sorry, but so we reported on these guys. I mean, I guess it was a month ago when we kind of first learned of this issue, and we were hoping that, by the time practice started, we would have some answers. Turns out that's not the case. And it's really mind-boggling that now they can't be with the team at all. They can't be in the meetings. They can't be at practice. They're just kind of off on their own. They can be in the building, but they just kind of have to do their own thing. It's mind-boggling to me because some of these guys were here for the spring practice, went through the spring game. So it's like they can't practice now, though. Now they still have to wait. It's just odd timing. And, we're talking about Rich Rod talking about it in his press conference. He didn't know that would be the case because I know there's been some question about that. They definitely didn't think it would take this long for this to happen, for them to have answers. I'm sure they would think they would have them before the start of the season. But here we are a week into fall camp, no answers, which has led to the 4 Mountaineers filing their lawsuits against the NCAA. So we've seen, players in the past. I know recently we talked about, I think Cortez Braham of Nevada, a former Mountaineer, filed an injunction like this and was granted eligibility for this upcoming season. So hopefully these Mountaineers will have good luck as well. We need to mention that. And then also we need to, mention that this is not the university doing this. These are the players doing it by themselves, going out and, doing this litigation against the NCAA, seeking these injunctions for eligibility for the upcoming season. But this is from the 247 site Ear Sports. Chris Anderson is the first person that I saw share this. He says the 4 Mountaineers who are on the program but not listed on the official roster have officially filed suit against the NCAA. Of course, those being Jamori Robinson, wide receiver Jeff Weimer, running back Ty Edwards, and then safety Justin Harrington. It was filed on August 1st in the Northern District Court of West Virginia. First reported by Sam Ehrlich, which we'll pull that up momentarily. He's shared it on social media. We'll pull that up momentarily, and we can see a little bit of the legal jargon in there because he shared the actual lawsuit. The complaint seeks an injunction that would allow the 4 players to be eligible for the 2025 season, forbidding the NCAA from enforcing its arbitrary and capricious decisions, breaching its contract with its member institutions, and preventing them from participating in college sports. The lawsuit confirms all 4 players applied for a waiver to play a 4th season at an institution, and all 4 players were previously denied. The suit also claims each of the players believed they would have another year of eligibility, chose to stay in school and attempted to play football at WVU. In doing so, they withdrew before went NCAA the NFL draft, which of course, that's one thing that they're able to cite here to help them in this lawsuit. The suit cites multiple abuses of the Sherman Act, a restrict on trade, and West Virginia laws against the establishment of a monopoly, in arguing why the 4 players should be granted another year of eligibility. Ultimately, the final demands from each of the players are as follows. Order from the court that the NCAA enforce its rules or regulations and bylaws, prevent the plaintiffs from immediately playing football. All damages due, treble damages, and for plaintiffs' attorney fees, costs, and expenses for such other relief that the court may deem just and equitable. So basically, if it is ruled in their favor, they'd be pretty much instantly eligible at that point. They'd take place in fall camp, try to get caught back up, and we'll see what happens. From what I understand here, because I think that I thought they were all individual, but it sounds like they're all filing together, it looks like here. Because see here this is the person that originally shared this, that they mentioned in the article, Sam Ehrlich, I believe is how you say his last name, if I'm not mistaken, or Ehrlich. But they're all listed together here. Plaintiffs versus NCAA. So it's all on one lawsuit, rather. Jamori, Jeffrey Weimer, Ty Edwards, and Justin Harrington, as you see here, all together. So they're either all going to be eligible or none of them are going to be eligible. It looks like, according to the way that this is being broken up with them all being in the same lawsuit, I would assume. I'm no legal expert by any means. But a couple things to highlight here. Plaintiff Robinson attends West Virginia University, and it says plaintiff Robinson, is talking about Jamori, has only participated in sports at an NCAA institution for 3 years over the past 4 years. He sought but was denied a waiver seeking to play a 4th year at an NCAA institution. So that's his argument there. Then we'll get into Jeff Weimer, who is next here. Let's see, where is the next one? Here it is. So for Weimer, due to medical and personal issues, he was unable to attend college during the 23-24 academic year. Weimer then attended NCAA institution, Idaho, in 2024-2025, where he played in the football team. Plaintiff Weimer now attends West Virginia University, and they state that Plaintiff Weimer has only participated in sports at an NCAA institution for 2 years over the past 3 years. He sought but was denied a waiver seeking to play a third year at an NCAA institution. Then we go to Ty Edwards here. Ty Edwards, in 2023 and 2024, attended Northern Iowa, an NCAA institution. He now attends West Virginia. Plaintiff Edwards has only participated in sports at an NCAA institution for 3 years over the past 4 years. He sought but was denied a waiver, seeking to play a fourth year at an institution. And then we got Justin Harrington. Harrington's is a little bit different. Harrington attended junior colleges, non-NCAA institutions in 2018 and 2019. He then attended an NCAA institution in Oklahoma from 2020 to 2023. He was granted a red shirt in 2020 and 2023, and then another red shirt for the 2021 season of football. And then so following that, he attended University of Washington, now attends West Virginia University. And they say altogether, he has participated in sports in an NCAA institution for 2 years over the past 3 years. So he, seeking that last year as well for Harrington, who's been around longer, but he's also had more redshirt seasons. So, judging by the way that it's put there, of course, by the attorney that I'm sure they're working with, they all seem to have somewhat of a case there. If you take into account the JUCO years, which they're trying to say doesn't count toward the NCAA, they would all, according to that, have at least 1 year remaining. 2 in some cases, I guess they're trying to reach for. But, we're just hoping to get them at least eligible for the upcoming season. We've talked about the impact this would have, particularly with Jamori Robinson, who's going to have a huge impact on this team. So not necessarily good news, not necessarily bad news, but it is some news, which I think is the main thing here, as because we're just playing the waiting game. We're a week into camp, have no answer on these guys. At least with them now, going out and doing this legal action against the NCAA, we're going to have news soon. We're going to have answers soon as to if they'll be eligible or not, and we can move on one way or the other. But fingers crossed, it's good news, and they do end up eligible. We've seen these injunctions be granted in other states, in other cases, so hopefully West Virginia is able to get one as well. Let me catch up on some of the comments here before we wrap up with talking about today's press conferences from Rich Rod, from Nicco, and Chase Wilson. Channel member Trey Edwards, appreciate you. Appreciate all our channel members. Help keep this mic recording and that camera rolling. If you're a WVU football fan who can't get enough content, you want film reviews after the game, you want to know the snap counts, the player grades, the injury reports, the depth chart projections, all of those things, hit the join button down in the video description on the YouTube channel homepage. Help support us, help keep the channel going, and get that extra content coming your way, like our friend Trey Edwards here, who asks, aren't we undefeated versus the NCAA? Hey, for the most part here lately, it's been good results. It's been good results, but also they've not always been timely either. I think about some of those early cases where we didn't have as much luck is what worries me here with this one. But good point. And I think lately the NCAA has been, unable to get victories, even more so than us being undefeated versus them. They've been struggling in court in a lot of these scenarios lately that we've seen. So we got to hope that, it's another one for the good guys here. Hope it's another one for the good guys. Hey, what's going on? WVU Mountain Lair with Kenny. Good to see you. What's up, Coop? Good to see you in here as well. My guy Drum Wolf says, let's go Mountaineers. Good to see you also, Drum Wolf. Says, surprised the NCAA has not started to pick on some of the basketball athletes next. I don't give them any ideas, Drum Wolf. Don't give them any ideas for sure. Kenny says, I think they win. Fingers crossed, man. That would be huge to have these guys eligible for the upcoming season. Would help this team a lot. Would help this team in a lot of ways, both on offense and on defense, as we have, 2 players on each side of the ball there seeking these injunctions. And we're going to find out about their eligibility here in the near future. And all of them very talented. And you guys know how I feel about Jamori Robinson. Super, super huge addition he was going to be to this roster. So we really need him. We really can use him for the upcoming season. But with that being said, fall camp now almost a week in the books today. Last day in shells, first day in full pads comes tomorrow, August 5th on Tuesday. And then we're rolling, pressing on to that opening game, of course, later this month, getting deep into fall camp now. And it'll be game prep before you know it. So these updates are going to be coming out hot and heavy. They've done a good job releasing a bunch of press conferences following the practices, and we're going to try and continue to cover them here on the CRW. But some thoughts from today's pressers. We had Rich Rod, got some thoughts from him here, where we'll talk then about the other potential roster addition as we go through his thoughts. Then a couple of potential team leaders, one on each side of the ball, quarterback Nicco Marchiol and linebacker Chase Wilson. So let's get into some of these. Rich Rod said practice was more competitive, he thought, today, particularly in the team periods, which is when they scrimmage, and the fact that they seemed more competitive there. He mentioned that they kept score, and that may have helped add to that competitive edge. But I like the reports of, after he got out there and got after their ass a little bit and, a couple press conferences ago, seems like that really took hold with the team, and they came out and have been super competitive since, it sounds like, which is good to hear. He mentioned the quarterbacks are all running well, and they're all going to be live more once they go full pads. So kind of from here on out, they're going to be live more to help them evaluate things, which that just means that the quarterbacks aren't going to be necessarily wearing, the different color uniform. Don't tackle the quarterback is always the rule in practice. He's learned, from the past that, he needs those guys to be live a little bit to see how they're going to be when, the bullets are flying, so to speak, when they're taking hits in the real game, when they're having to orchestrate the offense, because we know the quarterback run game's a big part of the Rich Rod system. He's felt like in years past not having the quarterbacks live has hurt him. Even last year, with Tyler Huff, who ended up being the conference player of the year there in the CUSA for Jack State. They didn't know what they had in him until, they got into the season, got into a few games there because the quarterbacks weren't live and they didn't know how competitive of a runner he would be. I ended up, throwing for over 2,000 yards, running for over 1,000. And so, they want to get those answers before the season starts this year. So they're going to let the quarterbacks be live and kind of see how that the quarterbacks handle the run game, handle the hits, how they handle running the offense when they're actually being tackled. So that's kind of the plan once the quarterbacks get into pads to help with that. And he said, Khalil Wilkins is starting to catch up after he wasn't able to participate in the spring, dealing with an injury versus all these other quarterbacks that were around for the spring, but that he's had some good days. So sounds like he's really liking, the ability to run from all of these quarterbacks, the ability to run the offense from all of these quarterbacks. We've continued to hear him praise those guys. And so super excited to hear, what he has to say about them once we get into full pads from here on out and hear about these quarterbacks when they are live, and you can learn a little bit more about them, and he can learn a little bit more about evaluations in general of the entire team once we get these full pads on. They was asked about the two running backs that are injured, which we've been able to learn, of course, is Sincere Bowers and Jalen Knighton. And this is where we learn about the other potential roster addition. He said one of them may be back soon, so didn't specify which one of the two that was, or if the other one was dealing with a more long-term injury. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but he also added they are working on adding another maybe. So he snuck that in there when talking about the running backs. So not only the linebacker that On Three's reporting could be a roster addition for WVU, but we may be having a roster addition to the offense as well. Another running back added into the mix there in the running back room potentially could be the case. It sounds like that they're maybe looking around and potentially doing that. We heard Rich Rod mention that at a couple press conferences, early in the fall camp, but I think we were all kind of thinking it was more motivational tactic, not quite exactly a sure thing. But now it 100% seems like a sure thing as he's talking about those injuries and talking about looking to add another one. So I would keep an eye on a potential running back joining this roster in the near future as well, to go with the linebacker that we talked about earlier in this stream. And then, of course, he also added kind of what I touched on a little bit there when talking about the lawsuit, that he didn't expect it to take so long to learn about the eligibility of the 4 players that they're still waiting on. When they were recruiting them, they was not expecting it to be this lengthy of a process. And then we got Nicco in here, the quarterback, one of the quarterbacks in the competition there, and he had some really nice things to say. Said he feels like the offense fits him very well, but then he was asked kind of what one of the hardest things to grasp was of the new system, and he said tempo. Tempo has been the hardest thing to grasp, but he loves that they want to be the fastest offense in America, which we knew. We're going to snap that thing as quickly as possible after every play, spot the ball, right? Rich Rod style. And then I love this comment that he made about the receivers here. And, kind of sneakily, he may have, snuck in some hints about our starters. And, funny enough, the ones that he mentions here kind of goes hand in hand with our projected pecking order that we gave in our position preview series. As when he talked about the receivers, he mentioned specifically Cam Vaughn and Jaden Bray, which could that be his 2 starting outside receivers? I certainly think so. And he says, with those 2 guys, that 50-50 balls aren't 50-50, that those guys have a great chance of coming down with it if they're in one-on-one situations. And then he talked a little bit about the hard edge mentality, stating, that hard edge is a lifestyle. He said, a lot of programs throw around slogans or they have buzzwords that talk about culture. He said, but it's entirely different when you actually live it, which is what hard edge demands. And talked about how it not only helps you in football, but it's going to help them in life beyond football and outside of football. And he said they thought that this team is really embodying that hard edge mentality, which is great to hear. And then on the offensive line, this was interesting because he mentioned specifically, he talked about Landon Livingston a little bit, and then he mentioned by name Nick Cray, Walter Youngbear, Kimo Makanaiole, and Tykees Crawford. So if you're reading in between the lines there, he mentioned Landon Livingston, who's a center. He mentioned Nick Cray, who could be a tackle. He mentioned Walter Youngbear, who could be a guard. He mentioned Kimo Makanaiole, who could be a guard. And he mentioned Tykees Crawford, who could be a tackle. So could that potentially be the starting five that he's looking at right now? I don't know. It's definitely possible. That would if it was, that would be Cray at left tackle, Walter Youngbear at left guard, Landon Livingston at center, Kimo Makanaiole at right guard, and Tykees Crawford at right tackle. And then he praised the athleticism of a lot of the offensive linemen, and we got actually proof of that. If you guys saw the social media team put this out to end practice, like I said, they were keeping score. One of the things they did was have the offensive lineman go up against the defensive lineman in a passing drill at the end, and the offense was able to win thanks to crazy one-handed grabs like this one from Nick Cray, an offensive tackle. We've heard a lot about his athleticism. I mean, he's 6'6", 300 plus pounds there, and he's able to do stuff like this. That is pretty athletic for sure. Take a look here. Pretty crazy. So the offense was able to beat the defense as they kind of kept score throughout practice and ended it with the big man drills, as they called them there, the fat guy drills, I think is what Rich Rod termed it as a term of endearment there. But you definitely see the athleticism that Nicco Marchiol was talking about there with Nick Cray for sure, as he goes up and makes that one-handed grab and is battling for one of the tackle jobs. So I thought that was interesting that he mentioned two guys that I think could be the two starting outside receivers, and then mentioned 5 linemen. Something to keep an eye on there if those do end up being the starters. And then lastly, comments from Chase Wilson, which I think stands out that we get to see him as one of the first defensive players. I think he's definitely going to be a leader on this defense, going to be a great linebacker for this team. And that's actually one of the first things he mentioned. He was asked about being a leader, and he says he feels comfortable being a leader of this defense. He loves how hard Zach Alley coaches. He says, you can hear him on the sidelines. He's kind of, you can tell why him and Rich Rod get along, right? Sounds like they're similar coaches. They say, if you're doing something wrong, Zach Alley's going to get after your ass. You might see him chewing somebody out, but at the same time, he's going to praise you just as hard. If you make a big play, he's going to get just as loud and excited for that. He just loves how hard that he coaches. And he said, going up against the up-tempo offense that wants to be the fastest offensive in America, he thinks is really good to prepare against, because when you get to game days, everything's going to seem slower. You're going to have more time to make your calls, all of that. And that's kind of goes hand in hand with what Rich Rod's talked about throughout this offseason as well, that they want to make practice so difficult that game days kind of seem easier, seem a little bit easier to the players, which is a good strategy to have. And I think the way that Chase Wilson mentions it there, going up against an up-tempo offense, when you get into game day, no one's going to go as fast as our offense is. They want to be the fastest offense in America. So, that's going to slow things down for you on game day, which is only going to help you. So it's really good to prepare against an offense like that. And then he was asked to name some standouts on the defense. And, he went through a long list here, but then said he felt like he left off some guys as well, because there's a ton of guys to name. But as far as the guys that he named, Braden Siders, Eddie V, Hammond Russell, Jason Chambers, Jordy Scruggs, and Fred Perry as guys that he felt like can be impact guys on the defense. So there's some notes, some updates that I had from the press conference today, some good takeaways, I think, from Nicco, from Chase Wilson, and from Rich Rod himself. So with that being said, that kind of covers everything I wanted to cover here. And we'll get ready to wrap this one up momentarily. Just want to catch up on your all's comments before we do so. Take a swig of my coffee and do just that. But appreciate you guys that tuned in live. Appreciate you guys that'll watch this on the playback. Either way, if you're here on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. Help us out with that crazy YouTube algorithm. Those of you that watch these on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel. Subscribe here. Catch up on that position preview series on the offensive side before we flip over to the defense, and check out the first episode of Season 8 of CRW Podcast as we made our predictions for the upcoming 2025 WVU football season on what the Mountaineers' record will be this upcoming year. Check that out if you haven't already. And, of course, shout out to you guys on the audio side. Listen there. Leave us a rating. Those that tune in, you can find us on any podcast platform. Can't forget you guys there. If you didn't get a chance to chat live here, throw your thoughts in the comment section. Appreciate those interactions as well. All right. With that being said, let's catch up on some of these comments here. Earth Ether said we should win this. Other schools have. Completely agree. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the way, because I'm saying it because I just don't want to get my hopes up and feel like, oh yeah, we got this. There's been injunctions everywhere, because then that's when the bad luck will hit West Virginia like it tends to every now and again, and then I'll just be absolutely crushed if we don't have Jamori Robinson. All of these guys I think can make an impact, but you guys know to me that's the main one that I'm super concerned about, even though these other guys can be impact players as well. I don't want to lessen their impact, but Jamori to me is just, a kind of a generational type guy. That's why it's been years and years since we've had a pass rusher of that ilk come through this program. So we'll see what happens. I think we should Earth Ether, but I thought we should before and we haven't, so hopefully we get the good results though. Buck Robinette says, I think they'll get the waiver, but gosh, might be well into the season. Sure hope it's soon. Yeah. And even if they do win, how long is it going to take for them to hear back after this lawsuit? A week, 2 weeks? By that point, you're into game prep. How long is it going to take these guys to catch back up now? Is the other concern that we'll have, even if they do get approved. There's certainly still questions remaining, but the big question will be out of the way. At least we'll know they're eligible, which have to get them caught back up. I guess the silver lining there is, with the exception of Weimer, who I don't think was here for the spring, the other guys were. So, they already know the installation process. They're familiar with the system, at least somewhat, having been here for the spring. So, that aspect shouldn't be too much for them to catch up on there. But you just have to hope that where they're doing stuff on their own now, they're keeping up with the conditioning, because that'll be the other concern. Are they in shape enough? So we'll have to just wait and see on that. I mean, hopefully it's not forever, but hopefully it doesn't take forever, man. I agree. Earth Ether said, I like that Rich Rod is being more aggressive, so when we hit the ground running, we need to be ready for Pitt, and Ohio is no slouch. Exactly. We want to have a better start to the season, man. It's been a while since we've had a good start to the season. It's been a while since we've even started 1-0, much less, come out of non-con 2-1, 3-0. We're hoping for a 3-0 start there. Like I said, Ohio's no slouch. They're having a good play on the road. And also, I think he's learning from last year at Jack State, where they started 0-3 and then didn't lose a game again the rest of the season, went on to win the conference title. But, he's thinking, what if we had a quick start then? How good of a year could that be? And he also knows here he has to come out and have a better start in these first 3 games, with Pitt being that third one, especially, for sure, Earth Ether, for sure. Let's see. I think we're all... Earth Ether, I love this one, man. He said, this ain't an NB team. Powder puff. Oh, buddy, it put a little bit more on tape, put a little more air in your helmets. Hey, that's right. That's right. Lace shoes up a little tighter, Earth Ether. Put a little bit more air in the helmet. Hey, that's right. You're ready. It's West Virginia football, baby. We're back. That's one thing I've been saying since we brought Rich Rod back. The Big 12 hasn't really seen the true West Virginia yet. We've had these air raid coaches in here since we've been in the Big 12. They're about to learn about the real West Virginia, that physical, hard-edged style this upcoming season. Can't wait for it. Can't wait for it. It's being instilled. And I like to hear, one of the quarterbacks saying that he feels this team is going to embody that hard edge mentality, which is great to hear. These guys are going to play hard, and they're going to be fun to watch. If nothing else, you won't have to see guys slacking. You won't see guys loafing, and you're going to see some exciting, fast-paced football on offense as well, spot the ball style. You're right. Complete culture change, and I couldn't be more excited for it. So happy that we play football later this month, guys. We play a football game later this month. Super excited. And we're going to continue to talk about it in the lead up there into this season. And as more news comes out on that lawsuit, if we find out about those players' eligibility, we'll report on that here as well. Watch out for those roster additions. The linebacker there from Oregon State we're keeping an eye on, and then maybe a potential running back as well in the near future. We'll see what happens with that. And, of course, I'm sure we'll have more press conferences to talk about as we proceed through fall camp. But that's what I've got here on this one, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one, whether you watch live or on the playback. And we'll have plenty more WVU football to talk about here in the coming days. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.